Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Illegal Moves podcast.
where we are covering sports from the field to the court.
I'm Liz.
I'm Taylor, and oh boy, do we have some breaking news! I need to get the fish guy for this stuff because oh my lord.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
No, we do. Well, before we get to that, you ready
Yeah.
for the holidays?
I yes. I guess I am a bit ready for the holidays to be done with in certain aspects in certain aspects, but no, it's been a good week at work, and things are going well. People are buying all of the foods, all of the drinks, and it's good, and looking forward to Sunday to just relaxing, and then uh Monday just sit around, watch football, which is great. Now there's football on Christmas,
Yeah.
not just basketball, so you can get all the sports in. Eat a bunch of food, and then decide what I'm going to do to change my life in 2024 with all my resolutions that I won't have. So, how about you? How are your holidays going?
It's good. We have wrapped the kids' Christmas presents.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do like a ton on Christmas because we just don't want Christmas to be super commercialized in our house. So we kind of
Yeah.
keep it pretty chill, but we got him some cool stuff.
What
And
is
then
what's the hot toy? I do not have any kids, so what's the hot toy for 4-year-old this year? What's
well, he already has a ton of stuff because he's
yeah.
spoiled. So that makes it hard to
Mm.
pick stuff out too. And also, apparently not that spoiled because every time we go to the store, I'll ask, "Do you want something? You can have a small thing," and he'll usually pick a toy, carry it around for a while, and then decide he doesn't want it, put it on the shelf, and say, "Let's go." So he
Hmm.
doesn't even really pick out toys. Like
Yeah.
he has a baby doll. His baby's name is Sweet Baby. He's had Sweet Baby for a long time. He takes very good care of Sweet Baby. Sweet Baby has all the things: high chairs,
Mm.
strollers, on low
Oh,
bed, all the stuff. And I thought maybe he'd want another baby doll. So like we went to
sure.
the American Girl doll store where they have baby dolls now, not just like the American Girl dolls, but like baby
Hmm.
dolls. And we spent probably 45 minutes in there while he held and looked at like every single baby doll, and then got so exasperated that all he picked out were a couple of bottles to take home to the current baby. Like he was like, I can't handle the responsibility of another child. This is too much for me. And he went home to the baby he's got. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
he's hard to shop for. But Magnetiles, popular.
Okay.
Dinosaurs,
Yeah.
kids super into dinosaurs. He's
Yeah.
got this giant Jurassic Park T-Rex that's like got a collar and a chain, and he like rolls across the room, and then he like roars.
Hell yeah.
So
Hell yeah.
he's got some cool stuff.
A friend of mine who also her son is 4. Apparently the big thing this year was a gumball machine. Apparently like I guess you'll see the ones where you put the quarter in, like the old whatever, and apparently some kids at school started talking about them, and apparently all the boys were like, I'm getting a gumball machine. And apparently, like of all the things that I would think would be like cool, apparently it's very simple. It's the
A
simple
gumball
things.
machine. I also feel like I would be drunk right now if I took a shot every time you said apparently. In that last little bit.
That hurts. I
It's you know what it is. Your apparentlys are my literallys because I say
mm,
literally
mm.
all the time, and I'll hear myself say it, and I can't stop
See,
even when I hear it.
I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice I did that because I typically
It was
don't.
good. It was like
Uh,
shock. You were just like the gumball
yes,
machine. It was
yeah,
good.
it is shocking, and it did throw me off. But I don't go back. I guess I should, go watch our episodes like after we're done, like game film, and sit there and pause it, and be like, see, right there, those words, they didn't make any sense. What are you doing? What do you do? Apparently, and critique myself so I can become an even better co-host.
Or you can be like me and don't, and
Yeah, I
just
probably
let it.
won't. I probably won't. I'll probably just keep barreling through and say whatever it is that I say.
It
So
cringes me out to go see old videos of myself so hard.
yeah,
I just, which is I mean, which is an insane thing to say considering part like my side gig is making content that's
right.
just me, and like
Yeah,
for anybody watching who's only ever heard of us on this podcast or seen it, like my content is just my face
It
And
is.
then
It
me
is.
talking about stuff
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, not even pretty or nothing. I just don't even wear makeup. My hair will be a mess. And so there's nothing to distract from the fact that it's just me talking, and the
Yep.
fact that I'm just like, I don't want to hear myself, and this freaks me out. So I don't know. We're in the wrong line of work, apparently.
Nah.
Apparently.
Well, here. What's
Apparently.
apparently
Now I did it.
what's funny is, and I've joked about this with Catherine. We just both love to talk so much, and yet sometimes, yeah, I don't want to hear myself talk, but I do want to talk a lot, and I want to talk about all sorts of things. We was last episode got off recording, and then just sat here and talked for another 45 minutes about whatever. It just kept going, and I just like I like talking
It's just
about all
fun.
sorts. It is fun. It is fun.
We have
Uh,
a fun time, y'all.
we did. Hey, I have a good time. Okay, don't rain on my parade. Okay, I'm just enjoying
And so,
life.
you know what I think of the phrase all the time, which you just remind me of, is Buddy, who's a mutual friend that we know, and he goes,
Mm-hmm.
"Isn't it fun?"
Isn't it fun? God, absolutely, man. Shut up, buddy's
Shout out
living
to
the
Buddy.
life. He's living the dream right now.
I know.
Very,
Random shout out. Random shout out has nothing to do with
very random
sports or
shout.
anything, but sports,
No,
we can get into it now because people are like, they've been talking for like 5 minutes about nothing.
yeah.
Um, let's talk about the breaking news. What is it, Taylor?
Yeah, so we had a couple ideas of what we wanted to do here for episode 6, and this story came out, and I was like, "Look, I don't think we can pass this up because it does go in hand a little bit with us discussing the NCAA last week and various things going on with that. We
And we've
got
already broken down Big Ten and kind of how conferences are set up, and I broke down kind of their whole legal framework. So if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, go back to episode 2, and if you
Mhm.
haven't seen it, and watch where we talk about Michigan and Harbaugh. I break down Big Ten and kind of the conferences and their whole legal framework and their legal standing, because we're not going to rehash that. We're just going to talk
Yeah.
directly
That
about
that
this issue,
that'll
but
kind of lay the foundation of what this
go back to that
ecosystem
episode.
is of hierarchies of things and such. Florida State, who has been in the news here recently, probably more for reasons that they did not think they were going to be.
Yeah.
They called a meeting with their board of trustees, and they have decided that they are going to sue uh, the ACC uh, on the grant of rights deal, which is wild. Basically, in the simple terms, Florida State wants out of the ACC. That is what we're going to talk about. A lot of stuff and various things. The ultimate thing is they want to leave the ACC.
And
Um,
so to backtrack, just for everybody who maybe is like me and just now learning about how all this is set up, because I just did not realize. The ACC is the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they are part of the Power Five conferences. So, like I mentioned, Big Ten earlier, that's one of them. We talked about them in episode 2. The Big 12 Conference, Pac 12 Conference, and then the Southeastern Conference, better known as the SEC. So I
RIP
think a lot of people are familiar with
Pac-12.
that.
RIP Pac-12.
I don't know. It's just
We'll get into
like,
that a little bit. So.
yeah, a little bit. And yeah, but anywho, they're part of that Power Five, and that is a big deal because before we started recording, I was asking Taylor, I was like, "What is this whole thing about Florida State being left out of a championship? Like, what's going on?" And so I'll leave Taylor to explain kind of what's happened there, because it kind of sets the scene for like a piece
It's part of
of
it.
Florida State's grievances.
They
Like,
can
it's not all of it, but a
say it's not
piece.
all of it, but it's feels like that straw that broke the camel's back a bit. So we are coming up on the college. It's bowl season, so it is time for the college football playoff. This is the last year of a 4-team playoff. So if they had the season they did this year, next year we wouldn't be having this conversation because they'd be in the playoff. But that is not happening yet. So in the history of the CFP, an undefeated Power Five conference champion has never been left out of the 4 teams that get to go until this year when Florida State was left out in place and Alabama got the spot. Now, there was so that happened. Obviously, Florida State is shocked that they were left out. They felt that they definitely should have been let in.
I don't even know
Uh,
football like that, and I'm shocked because that just sounds crazy. Like
it,
undefeated, and yeah.
yes, and uh, however, there are certain criteria that the committee looks at for who gets in, and
And
it's
when you say
always
the committee, which committee?
the
Sorry.
college football playoff committee. So the group that
Okay.
decides, it's a mix of commissioners and various people get together and decide. And it's who are the four best teams, not the four most deserving teams, the four best teams in the country, which this year was Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama. Couple of the, there's different criteria of what they look at. And two of those things are actually, so uh, uh, one of our favorites, Ron DeSantis, said he was going to sue. He was going to give money, Florida the money to sue the College Football Playoff Committee for not letting them in and all. Well, the College Football Playoff Committee responded, which I'm a little shocked they even responded to this kind of talk, but they did. They gave two main reasons. One of them was the players who would be available to play. Jordan Travis, star quarterback for Florida State, broke his leg, would not be in the college football playoff games, and they felt that affected the team enough that they wouldn't be as good of a team. The other being a perceived weak strength of schedule. Now, part of that strength of schedule is who you play in your conference, which for Florida State is the ACC, which is why I do think it plays a part
Yeah.
in this, because the committee is letting an SEC team in over them, even though that Alabama team lost a game. Now, albeit to Texas, right, who is also
Right.
in it, but they still lost a game where Florida State did. And they're saying, yeah, even though they lost, the teams that they played, they had a tougher year than you did, and they are a better team. So they should be in. So, yeah, so like I said, Florida State's been in the news here recently. They thought they'd be just waltzing in. And I think that just really did make them look at this lawsuit that they have been talking about for a while now, uh, even more important to get rolling and to try to make something happen for the school.
This
Yeah.
is as I will as I said to Taylor before we started recording, because by the way, we started recording way late because when I tell y'all I went down the rabbit hole, I went down the rabbit hole. And then I messaged, I was like, oh crap, it's 11 o'clock my time. And I texted him, I was like, I think I've read enough.
Yeah. It's telling me what you're reading. I was like, you were. I just was going to talk about. Okay, so but there is, and I'm glad you did look all that stuff up because it is in
Yeah.
relation to this. Absolutely.
So to lay the foundation, which I feel like is so appropriate
Mm-hmm.
since I am now a Maryland resident, Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something that folks should know is, if you didn't, in 2012, the University of Maryland left the ACC, right? So they
Correct.
gave they announced they were going to go to Big Ten, and in 2013 they gave the official notice. So we have some precedent for this, specifically when it comes to ACC, and for I don't know if it's exactly the same reasons. There's money at the root of it, opportunity at the root of it,
Mm-hmm.
but the difference being Maryland was in dire straits. Like the university was broke. Apparently, they had they had to cut 7 different athletics programs. They were just in big trouble, and they knew they could make more money going to the Big Ten. Which would ultimately allow them to preserve their athletics programs as well as benefit the academic institution as a whole. And from what I'm seeing, no regrets to their choice to switch to Big Ten, because
Absolutely not.
it saved them. It saved them.
It did.
Um,
Yeah.
and I want to bring up that scenario because Taylor is talking about a championship and like all of the ins and outs of that with like the team being successful, but that's not the only thing, right? We said there was a piece of it. It's not just about whether the teams are successful or whether they can win, because a lot of sports fans criticize Maryland still and say, from what I saw, the phrasing, and maybe you can explain this a little bit, Taylor, they said that Maryland made the mistake of going to Big Ten because they made a football decision about a basketball school. So I guess what they were saying is Maryland was more so like their basketball program was their strong suit, and they're trying to say that the decision really only benefited their football team. Is that what I'm understanding right when they say
Yeah, I mean
that?
that's what they're trying to say, that they were a basketball school, but the Big Ten is not a basketball which
I,
I'm gonna have to disagree with. The Big Ten has some really solid basketball teams, including the number one team in the country right now in Purdue. So, and yes, obviously the football was a big part because college football is what makes we've discussed this. College football is what makes the most money of any college sport.
yeah,
So yeah, you are going to make that decision because that is and in discussing media contracts. Currently, the Big Ten has the best media contract of any of the Power Five, even over the SEC, and are set up actually for right now, as it stands, for more success in the future with their media contracts because of how they've negotiated things. And so, yeah, Maryland moving early and getting in, and a lot of people. That was when the argument was still like, well, they don't even look at the Big Ten's a Midwest conference, and they're on the East Coast, they're Mid Atlantic. It's like, dude, it doesn't. And now at this point, we're adding teams from California into the ACC. So, that doesn't matter anymore.
yeah,
So yeah, Maryland, I believe, made a great decision, but also it was the decision they had to make. And
yeah.
yeah, I don't think with where they're at now and then where the ACC is at right now, yeah, Maryland lucked out big time.
Yeah, and so the legal side of that is that there is an exit fee, right? So I mentioned before, again, you can go back to episode 2 and listen in detail, and that is specifically on Big Ten, but all of the conferences are set up this way, and that it is set up with contract law, business law. They are set up like, a board of directors. That's kind of how it's set up. As I mentioned before, I did okay in biz orgs in law school, but I'm by no means an expert. So if my professor is listening to this, don't get mad at me. Um, but yeah, no, they are set up pretty much like that with all their bylaws and all of that. And so it's all contract law that's governing this, right? Because they're not really a legal entity. It gets kind of interesting when you think about it because publicly funded universities and colleges are considered, public entities. It's so weird to see private industry and public sector crossover. But in
Hmm.
this case, we're looking completely at it as a private entity um, where they've created their own laws, their own contracts, what have you. And so obviously, they don't want people to just be able to jump out willy nilly and leave. They want to try to have some sort of incentive for them to stay in their conference. And so the ACC had, at the time that Maryland said they were going to go to Big Ten, a $52.2 million exit fee that would have been required to leave the Atlantic Coast Conference. And so they had a lawsuit. Maryland and the ACC back and forth sued each other, countersuits, all of that good stuff. And they finally came to a settlement of $31.4 million, which is the amount of money that Maryland had earned from the time that these lawsuits began, but had been withheld by the ACC. It's basically the media, the payout that they were owed.
Mm.
And so the settlement came to, all right. ACC said, look, we're not going to give you the money we owe you, but we won't charge you anymore. We'll just take it at $31.4 million rather than the full $52.2 million. Maryland said, done deal. And in 2014, they go off to Big Ten and leave relatively free and clear. So that's a lot of money. Nothing to shake a stick at now. But Jesus Christ, have things changed? Because what this all comes to, and while we're setting the stage and kind of the background and all of that, is that the penalty package for FSU, as it stands right now, according to the terms of the contract and all that, for them to exit the grant of rights being that Florida State University and all of the member schools in the ACC have signed. It says just like it sounds, y'all. Very plain, granting their rights to media negotiations to the ACC to make on their behalf, and the ACC went and made that with ESPN on everybody's behalf and all that. That plus the severe withdrawal penalty is $570 million. And when I saw that number, I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And it's to be more accurate, 572 million. That's
Mm-hmm.
429 million for the forfeiture of the media rights through 2036, which we will get into in a
Mm-hmm.
moment
Yep.
because it is 2023. What? It also includes $13 million for unreimbursed broadcast fees and the severe ACC withdrawal penalty of $130 million. Now, if I understand it correctly, that penalty is basically what Maryland had to deal with in 2014. But like I said, even if they had paid the full amount, it would have been 52.2 million. And I guess it wasn't considered a severe withdrawal penalty at the time. It's
Yeah.
just an exit penalty.
And
So
the landscape of sports was very different. Of college sports was very different at the time
and with the ACC,
as
because a
well.
lot of this that you're seeing the contract for, like these fees and stuff, this was designed because Maryland left.
Yeah.
Maryland leaving was the impetus behind the conference putting all of this in these contracts. So, holy calzone, let's talk about this grant of rights. Let's talk about what the ESPN contract entails. So
Yeah.
I'll pass it to you, Taylor.
Yeah. So this grant of rights, which is what the ACC believes to be ironclad, because they say it multiple times, is directly in line with the media rights deal that the ACC signed with ESPN in 2016. Now, originally, this deal was a 10-year deal. It was just over 2016 to 2027 was going to be the deal, and then there was this option for ESPN to extend it for another 9 years, if they so choose, to 2036. So, and this is where we're getting allegations from Florida State that because Florida State feels that they should basically have until 2027 and should be able to just walk free, no problem. They're alleging that the ACC told its members ESPN issued an ultimatum. Unless the members extended the grant of rights from 2027 to 2036, ESPN would not enter into further media agreements with the conference. FSU said it agreed to the grant of rights extension based on this representation. So you have Florida State saying, I guess alleging that ESPN never said this and the ACC was just trying to get them to sign this deal so they could for sure lock their members in for 20 years.
20 years.
Which is, people, which right now you got people just shitting on the SEC for signing a 10-year deal in 2020. And you have the Big Ten who signed a 7-year deal, which is why they're going to get to renegotiate even quicker with more teams now because they are adding Washington and Oregon, two really good programs from the Pac-12. So they're going to have even more negotiating power. As well, in this deal, the 2016 extension locked league members into the same rates negotiated in the 2012 media rights package with ESPN. So they were essentially going to have the same media contract payouts for 24 years.
Which is crazy.
And we're upset, and people are upset about a 10-year with the SEC. And this is a 24-year. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It makes no sense. Like, think, Taylor, and I want listeners to think about what just things cost 3-4 years ago.
Hmm?
Just 3-4 years ago in your own personal lives, right? Could you imagine whatever money you were making 3 or 4 years ago being the same thing you're going to have to live off of 24 years?
You work at one place for 24 years and never get a raise.
Never get a raise.
And you're
Like
just
it's
like,
just
yeah, well, hey, yeah, loyalty. It's like, no, no, I
it's
don't think so.
so crazy. And then, like we said before, cost of everything goes up. And I'm gonna just keep harkening back to this. I know this has been my soapbox over and over again on multiple episodes, but the student part of student athlete is so overlooked over and over and over again. And just like we saw with Maryland in 2012, they needed to make that financial move, not just for their athletics programs, but for their academic programs, for their university as a whole. You cannot separate the academics from the sports. I know a lot of people try to, but if it weren't for the academics, if it weren't for the accreditation of like these degrees and things, these schools can't even exist, right? And they need to be able to provide their educational offerings. They need to be able to support that, and this is part of it. That money gets spread around. It brings in revenue. A lot of times, I know with the University of Memphis, it's great when athletics is done well. The University of Memphis has actually been pretty decent at not raising tuition. I think there were a few years in a row, I recall, where they didn't raise tuition at all. They were able to offset costs with other things, not just sports, but I think FedEx donations. FedEx puts a lot
Hmm.
into the University of Memphis and international paper, like all kinds of stuff like that. But so you know, they need to make the best financial decision for their college or their university as a whole. And side note about FSU, they have a soft place in my heart, and I want all the best for them because they were the first place that gave me one of the first places that gave me publication credit
Okay.
for law school. Yeah, the Florida State University School of Law and the College of Medicine combined published an article of mine in 2017 when I was still a student. So I love FSU.
All right, Seminole. Let's go. Okay,
I'm
very
just
cool.
saying
Yeah,
FSU, and so their academics are. Again, I know I've used this phrase already, but those academics are nothing to shake a stick at. FSU is a really good
yeah,
university, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do. Let's just quick counts on what they're suing for. Okay,
yeah.
um, so FSU is suing. So you guys have all the information about the $517 million. The breakdown Taylor's talked about the unilateral extension. You've got all of that. So this is what the lawsuit is alleging, and from what I understand, there are 7 counts. The first is that the penalty package violates Florida law. I don't know what that Florida law is. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Like I was trying to deep dive into
Yeah,
this,
they're
but I didn't get to break into everything.
they're
And it,
they're referencing it as unreasonable restraints of trade in the
okay,
state of Florida.
there you go. And that's where
So
Ron DeSantis kind of came in and was like, "Yeah, we're gonna," so
yeah,
Florida.
so yeah, well,
Florida law, state law. The second count is that the penalty of the grant of rights is unenforceable. Um, the third count is breach of contract. So remember, I said all these conferences, it's pretty much contract law. So yeah, breach of contract is going to be in there. Um, and the breach of contract specifically is that the ACC has failed to appropriately give FSU the value of its athletic program media rights back, being because they said that the agreements have been diluted because of everything Taylor has talked about, the locking in of the rates for 24 years. Yeah. The fourth count is the breach of fiduciary duty. Fiduciary duty meaning like you have an obligation of looking out for the financial well-being of the person who you owe a duty to. So they're saying that the ACC owes them a fiduciary duty. So that's like the first thing they would prove. I think that's pretty clear cut. Yeah, we would say that they absolutely have a fiduciary duty to them. And then the breach part of it. And yeah, I mean, that makes sense that they're not negotiating in the best interest, especially based on current market value. We have other conferences to compare to.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see that breach. The fifth is just fundamental failure of contractual purpose. Broad. It's something you include in there. I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain that. It's just one of those things. If you're going to allege a breach of contract, you're going to allege that
Is
with
it
it.
is it you're not doing your job?
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Yeah.
And then the sixth and seventh counts are unconscionability. That word.
Hey,
Hey, if you guys remember in our
take a drink
episode,
at home. It's unconscionability.
unconscionability.
That needs to be a thing. You should have to drink when we say that, which that's now a couple times.
I'm never in my life, thinking back to my first year of law school, when we had to research unconscionability, thought I would talk about it this dang much, but here we are. If you
This
guys
is
recall, in our Nike episode, I talk about unconscionability, so you
this
can
is
go
like
back and
that.
listen.
I'm never gonna use this in my real life. Well, here
Oh
you
my
go.
god. Yeah, and like there was one, what was the assignment I think we had? It was the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. It was the CFAA. And I was like, this is stupid. I never want to see this again. I was so livid. I ripped up my final paper after I turned it in and gotten a grade on it. I was like, this is terrible, and laughed about it. And now I do privacy law. And I made a joke that I was like heavily pregnant and already annoyed in 2019. And I was sitting at a conference for work listening about the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So random aside, a lot of these things, if you're thinking of going to law school, that crap shows up again and again and again. But the seventh count is just violation of public policy, which again is one of those things that you just kind of always include in there. But nobody knows how this is going to turn out. People are saying, is this enough to rule that the ACC violated its contract? Lawsuits take a long time. You got appeals, you got all of that. I think the likely result is they're gonna settle, just like ACC did with Maryland in 2013, right, or 2014. A settlement is the most likely route. This was by the way, y'all, when we say this is like fresh news, this is fresh news. As in, the ACC hasn't even filed, from what I understand, a response yet. Like this is the lawsuit is filed, and they have not responded, which they have
they quickly filed. So the ACC is based in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County. They did file something very quickly as like a preemptive thing, but yeah, it's still we're still
Was it them
in the.
filing for an extension?
It was a declaratory something or other. Let's see. Let me find that real quick.
But yeah, it's fresh. I mean, this is
Yeah,
fresh.
so they made a preemptive legal maneuver Thursday by filing a complaint for declaratory judgment against Florida State's Board of Trustees in a state court. Uh, but yeah, I mean, this is, and also not only is it fresh, just happened. This has never been done. So no school has ever challenged a conference's grant of rights.
No.
This is so
Like
we
it's
don't
one thing
have
to negotiate the penalty to leave, like Maryland did, but this is a
right.
whole
Well,
other
you
level.
know you had Oklahoma and Texas who are going to the SEC next year, have
You had
their
Rutgers.
kind of spat. Well, Rutgers went to the Big Ten back around when Maryland went.
Yeah.
But so next year, and this is why Florida State is mad. So Oklahoma and Texas, right, two blue blood programs, are moving to the SEC. Washington and Oregon, again, two very good programs. One of them in the college football playoff, going to the Big Ten. In response, the ACC added Cal, Stanford, and SMU, who are fine schools. Stanford, great school, school wise, academic wise, a great has a great women's basketball team for a while. Has had up and down years in football. Christian McCaffrey, his alma mater, Andrew Luck as well. Cal has had some good teams as well, competitive. SMU, they've been in smaller conferences, but have done well in those conferences. They've been in the American with Memphis, but those three gets aren't anywhere near as good as what the SEC and the Big Ten are getting, and that I think is that's one of the things I believe Florida State will say, that hey, like, you look at what all these other conferences are doing. You're not doing what they're doing. Um, but harking back, Oklahoma and Texas didn't even do this. They just kind of waited out the end of their contract with the Big Ten or Big 12 to leave. Excuse me. Uh, they didn't even go after all this. So this is, and they feel
So
they've exhausted all opportunities with the conference, and that this is what they didn't want to but had to do.
and that's a great point you bring up, Taylor's waiting till the end. So that is an option. I do want to point out that the $572 million is what the fees are calculated to be if they leave now. right?
Hmm.
The longer they go in their contract, the longer they go, the lower that fee would be because they will be fulfilling at each year some of that grant of rights and all of that. The problem, and why I fully understand why FSU is trying to fight this now and see what happens, is it's 24 damn years. Like, like it's not like, oh,
Yeah,
we could wait
yeah,
out 3 or 4 years or even wait partially in there and just kind of reduce everything,
yeah.
like, oh, let's wait a couple years and then go. That's it's such a
They've
long
dealt with
time.
this already. Yeah, it's I guess since 2020, 11, yeah, it'll be 12
Yeah,
seasons next year. They've dealt with this. So they're only halfway through. They're only halfway through this same amount of money that they've been making. And you're
it's
telling
beyond
them,
wild.
yeah. Now, what's interesting to me is, so this declaratory. Can you? What is a declaratory judgment?
So a declaratory judgment is like, I'll explain it. Oh God, I think it's just. Well, it's not that I think. I know what it is. I'm trying to think like what, because I didn't even look at what they were doing in this particular case. But it's just the judge says this is a fact, right? They're
Okay,
just
okay,
like this,
okay,
this is what it is,
okay. So,
and we are not disputing this, and this isn't in. So, but I'll be honest, I didn't see
well,
what they were requesting in that specific one. Do you know?
their guess, I guess the university is looking what they're alleging, right? In the challenging of the grant of rights is they are looking for a declaratory judgment in favor for Florida State. And if that were to happen, the school could leave the ACC without penalty. The departure would be backdated to April 14th of this year, 2023, to ensure Florida State could leave the conference in the event of new bylaws being put into place. If the judge
Okay.
declines to issue judgment in favor of either side, they could be sent to mediation to negotiate a resolution, which I'm
Oh,
guessing is
okay.
probably what's going to happen because I mean that would be that I don't know, that feels like too much for a judge to just say yes, but I mean I guess I guess it is possible, but again, Florida State did sign a contract and
Okay.
agreed to this.
So I'm looking it up. So yeah, the ACC's preemptive legal maneuver by filing a complaint for declaratory judgment. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, so they filed
Um,
one, and then I guess Florida State also.
Florida
Florida
State filed
State
one.
filed theirs
Yeah.
in Tallahassee, and then you have the ACC filing theirs in Charlotte.
Okay, I'm not a litigator, but I'm trying to remember, and I think that's one of those things that you just always ask for, just like you always ask for summary judgment at one point, just because you
Okay.
might get it.
Oh yeah,
You,
yeah,
you
yeah.
might get it.
That makes
So
sense.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm 99% sure that that's how it works. But yeah, that makes total sense now. Yeah, they're not going to grant that. I don't see a judge granting that
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
one of
Just
those.
because at first when you said declaratory judgment, I was like, maybe they're trying to get it. Sometimes it's just for one of the
Mm-hmm.
allegations. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not for the whole. From
Sure.
what I understand, sometimes it's like, let's go ahead and take this out of issue now if we can. But it makes sense now if I'm recalling correctly from what, again, I learned in school because I'm not a litigator, and anything I
Yeah.
went to court for was either like social security benefits crap, or one time I did like DV cases. That's criminal law, so that's a whole other thing. But for this, yeah, if I recall correctly, that you always just kind of like it does. It's one of those things. I guess it doesn't hurt to try to get it.
It's the worst they can say is no, kind of
Yeah, the
thing.
worst they could say is no, and I remember that because
And
you
if they
always
say
had.
yes, it's great. So you might as well
Yeah,
ask.
I'm
Okay.
trying to remember because I think that it's like the same thing with summary judgment. Like you always file for summary judgment, and that's like later. It's
Yeah.
it's not at the beginning.
And
Yeah.
two, one thing I do want to mention, we've mentioned money a few different times of what the payouts are going to have to be, and just just to give I guess some reference to this, right, of these media deals that are signed. So uh, in the ACC, their media rights deal is worth somewhere around uh, $30 million a team, I believe
Mm.
is where they're at. Um, which I'm not saying isn't a lot of money. I mean that's a you know, To me, that would change my life. But obviously, to a school, got to make $30 million go a long way from that media rights. Comparison, the SEC had a reported revenue of about $50 million a school in 2023. The Big Ten, with their new deal, they are looking in between 70 to $100 million per school. And also, whenever the SEC does, and I bet the SEC tries to renegotiate sooner. I bet
Yeah.
they're going to try to get with getting Texas Oklahoma. They're going to try to renegotiate something sooner. I guarantee you they will be looking at. They're going to want $100 million minimum per school. I could easily see that. So you have the Big Ten, the SEC getting their schools. By the way, Maryland in the Big Ten, right?
Mm-hmm.
So their schools, they're seeing their schools get double, if not triple, what these ACC schools are getting. And Florida State wants in on that money. I think, and I think too, Florida State believes the SEC would welcome them with open arms. I was having this conversation with a couple buddies. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's true. They probably would. I mean, SEC probably
Okay.
they would probably take Florida State and Clemson. I think. However,
I'll take your word on it.
the only reason they may not is because the SEC already has a team in Florida, University of Florida Gators, and a ton of schools recruit the state of Florida. I mean, state of Florida has a ton of 5-star recruits come out of there, 4 and 5 stars all the time, ton of great players. The SEC seems to want Virginia because they have good revenue. It's a new market. There are no SEC teams in Virginia, and then as well North Carolina. They don't have any schools in North Carolina, so again a blue blood in basketball, and has been a good football team here recently. That they may want those two. Obviously, Florida State is a great sports school. I'm sure they would want them. I'm sure the SEC would want to take them and make sure the Big Ten didn't get them. But that seems to be, I think, something that Florida State is positioning themselves for. They feel like they belong there, and or at least deserve to get that money. Because
Yeah.
one of the interesting things, because these conferences do distribute money equally. So, for example, teams that make bowl games, the money that teams make from a bowl game gets distributed amongst the members of the conference, right? So,
I remember you telling me this when we were talking
yeah,
about Harbaugh, and you were saying that that's why it's like, even if you're not the best team within the conference, if you're in the conference with a really good team, it benefits you because of how everything's distributed.
exactly. Yeah. So you have, Alabama who makes it to the college football playoff. They're getting a payout. Well, a team like Vanderbilt benefits from that
Mm-hmm.
because that payout gets distributed amongst the conference. One of the things that Florida State wants with their media rights portion is they want more. They want a bigger share of that uh, because they feel that they are more valuable to the ACC than, let's say, Wake Forest. That more people want to watch Florida State than watch Wake Forest. So we should get more money because more eyes are on us. It should not be distributed equally, which is a really interesting thing because that typically does not happen in other conferences. Um, I do think, and you mentioned it, I feel like this is eventually going to get settled
I think
for
so.
probably some crazy number, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to pay the $572 million, but at this point, I don't I don't see how Florida State. This feels like you've decided to break up with your partner, and
Mm-hmm.
so there's like no matter what, they're eventually going to break up. And the ACC, but also at the same time, the ACC can't afford to lose Florida State. So
Sounds like they should have negotiated a better media rights deal.
they are, yeah, they
That's
should have.
terrible. That is dumb. And that's the thing that I think is going to make it so that they settle for less is because, like, I'm sorry. No matter what way you cut it, that's a stupid deal. And so they're saying you breached our fiduciary duty. Like, you breach contract because you are supposed to be doing things in our best financial interest. And I don't know how anybody with a lick of sense is going to say that that was in their best financial interest. Like, I think they're going to lose on that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you about how it's not. I think they're going to settle and it's not going to be for that astronomical amount. And I also know that there are a bunch of attorneys on behalf of the conference who are super pissed and scrambling that they have to deal with this crap during the holidays right now. So you have
Oh,
20 days, 20 days to respond. Um,
oh my
when you
gosh.
file, but you can ask for, you can request an extension. So, yeah, and like I said, I don't know, not really a litigator, don't know a ton, but I know like little basic things. And I actually think an article mentioned that too. An article that I saw
Yeah.
mentioned the 20-day, sure, they have 20 days to respond and then they can ask for an extension, all that good stuff.
Also,
So
I can't
somebody's working on Christmas and somebody ain't happy. So,
I can't imagine how much stuff they're going to have to look at. So the managing shareholder of the law firm that is representing the Florida State board mentioned, he was detailing with the board, with what the university believes is fiduciary mismanagement and the way the ACCs handles media rights agreements back going back to 2010. So like, how much paperwork and
oh
things are
God.
and contracts are these lawyers going to have to go through?
Discovery would be insane
Uh,
for this. Like going through everything, every little bit. And I saw somewhere in an article that said that the attorneys for Florida State have been working on this since like last summer. So they've been thinking on
yeah.
this.
The Florida State has. I mean, and I agree with what they're
Which I
saying.
would
Like, we've
think,
done all this stuff because
yeah.
they have. This isn't necessarily out of the blue. It's just like, oh shit, they're doing. It's more like, oh shit, they're doing it.
Oh
Kind
shit,
of
they're
thing.
doing it. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming that ACC like had to be prepared at least somewhat. Like they had to know, right? Like I don't think. I mean,
Yeah.
if they were completely taken by surprise, I'm like, okay, y'all are dumb. But
Yeah, I hope that they're not, because they, God, it's the grant of rights is ironclad, and they feel that the document language is so rigid that, oh, it can't, it wouldn't get it would get overturned. But the fact is, we don't know if it is or
mhm,
not, because no one's ever challenged this.
yep,
So how good is the language in there? And
yeah,
um, yeah, I oh man, for their sake, I hope that they have anticipated this somewhat and have been doing some work. Because
yeah.
good
And you know
God,
what? This also, sorry, I don't even know what you said made me think of it, but other member schools of the ACC potentially can sue too. And uh, I am curious to see what happens because they have to be wondering like, okay, what is the outcome of this going to be? Because that's going to tell us a lot about what we have the ability
sure,
to do and our like
because they
what.
do mention. They do mention they're not specifically just against them, but the members of the conference. I mean, Florida State isn't saying, "Oh, lowly us." They do at a point mention the entire conference and the
Mhm.
all of the teams in the conference. So
Yeah,
man, I didn't even. I don't know why I didn't think about that, but I didn't think about that.
yeah, it's gonna be a hot ass mess. I know that much. And then, like you said, what? So, as the sports guy,
Yeah,
tell me what would this do? Like, if Florida State dips, what does this do to the ACC?
yeah. It hurts big time. We mentioned I mentioned last week with the NCAA that at at we are watching the slow death of the NCAA.
Yeah.
In relation to what, to their role as the governing body of college sports, and it's going to happen. Like it will. I believe in the near future, it's either going to have to change drastically or it will go away. Florida State is a big program in the ACC. They are a huge revenue driver. Even though they've had a couple down years in football recently, they had a great year this year, obviously, and have always been one of those teams in contention. They're always competing in the ACC. Um, you lose a school like that, And the issue is not only does it hurt in straight up losing that school and the revenue that they could generate and the competition they bring. Now other schools are going to want to leave because you lost Florida State. So a
Yep.
team like Clemson is going to be like, well, no, we don't want to be here.
Yeah. And we
Teams
saw how
like
they got out. So look at
teams
that.
like
We
Duke, North Carolina, uh, they're not going to want to be there. Virginia, it is it. So it creates an even greater strain on the ACC if they were to leave. And with where the SEC has placed themselves and where the Big Ten has placed themselves, and the Big 12, although they're losing Oklahoma and Texas, they're bringing a couple schools in next year. I know Colorado Boulder is one of them. The Big 12 trying to keep their position as well. The Pac-12 is gone. Uh, they're done, so they didn't make it. So the ACC is in their if they don't get this ship right, they're going to be the next ones to sink, just like the Pac-12 did.
so yeah, and let's go ahead and talk about that because I did want to ask what happened to you said RIP Pac-12 at the beginning of the episode. So let's
RIP,
talk a little
yeah,
bit more about that.
yeah.
I know
So
we've already kind of hinted at, like, or not hinted, but talked about two of the schools that have left and gone to Big Ten. But
yes, so and actually one of the big things is it's the media deal. The conference could not secure a good enough media deal for the members. The members felt that it wasn't good enough, that they were not uh, getting them the revenue they deserved off of that. And rather than try to resign or do something, they decided that their member teams would go other places. Um, so you have and I mentioned that about Pac-12. Yeah, I
mm-hmm.
forget. Yeah, right. USC and UCLA are going to the Big 10, Big 12. Washington, Oregon going to the Big 10. So what those schools saw was, look, you're not, and it's tough too. Pac-12 is tough because those games, your game is starting at 10, 11 o'clock on the East Coast, 12 o'clock at some points, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not, and it's not going to be over until super late. And so it's like, well, that's really hard. It's really hard for those West Coast schools to get some good deals, and it just couldn't happen. And the schools decided to leave. Um, so again, that is how important media rights deals are in today's day and age, with just access to. I feel like if you wanted to, you could watch almost every game, right, via a channel, a streaming, a subscription, whatever it is.
I would think
Um,
so.
yeah,
They all
and
have media deals, right? They all have that
yes,
now. It's
yes,
just about finding what platform you can watch it
right,
on.
and but the Pac-12 just couldn't make it happen, and it's sad. I mean, they're one of the the old school conferences, just kind of a classic. They're one of the Power Five, and it's done. Yeah,
Man, I'm
it's
just thinking about the fact that I don't know how any of this is going to look in 10 years, 5 years.
I don't know. I don't know. And uh, buddy of mine talking about um, American sports versus European sports, and just how they handle uh, amateurs, right, in sport, right? They're not associated with schools, right?
Yeah.
These there That's a whole separate ecosystem that exists there for these kids to come up in and excel. Um, and it is a very unique thing here in the U.S. with colleges and college sports, and how we have reached the point of it's it's no longer amateurism.
No, they can keep saying that word as much as they want to try
Um,
to get out of lawsuits and responsibility and
I
paying people
mean,
their worth, but
at
it's
least
not.
with football and men's and women's basketball programs. Yes, there are some club sports, various things. At the University of Kentucky, the hockey team is actually it's a club team. They're not actually like associated with a conference or the school or anything. They're a club team. The Kentucky rugby team, they're Division 1 AA, right? But ultimately, it's amateurism in those sports is done, especially with the massive NIL deals going on, and uh, you know these conferences these conferences should be the ones having the best interests of their members in mind. I do believe the
Mm-hmm.
SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, they do. They see the writing on the wall, and that's why they're getting ahead of this. And, adding teams that, yes, it's going to be super weird when,
Yeah.
we're going to have Maryland and Washington in the same conference. You
Tell
know,
me about that because I'm looking at your face and I'm trying to read it.
well, I
So
mean, so okay, all right. So they're student athletes.
okay,
So that means they're a student. So you're telling that student that goes to the University of Maryland that, hey, you got an away game at Washington.
I see what you're saying.
And guess what? Your big noon kickoff. Okay, so that's new, all right, so now you're going to have to fly across the country, right? Now so you're in a completely different time. You're 3 time zones away. You have to play this big noon kickoff. Now you got to fly back. You're getting home super late, even though, whatever. And then you got to be ready to go to class on Monday. And at least with football, at least with that, you're playing one game a week on, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, typically Friday or Saturday for most of the better schools. They usually don't play like Thursdays, but it's possible. What about basketball? Right now you have a student athlete who guess what? You go to Oregon? Yeah, you're playing in Ann Arbor, Michigan on a Tuesday night. Okay,
Yeah.
now, and yeah, I mean, they're making enough money, they should be able to charter flights and do all that. But then then you got to be ready for class the next day.
Yeah,
And those are big
that's
programs. And those are big programs that we're talking about. This does happen, with a smaller school having to travel too, but again, it's where if they were just athletes, it would be fine.
you
if
know
we
what I
were
gotta
if we were
say.
just asking them to be an athlete,
Yeah,
no problem at all, because that's your job. But no, your job is a student, and you also happen to be an athlete, and that is where I think we have gotten too wonky with college sports, here in the U.S.
I gotta say I'm embarrassed after all the touting that I did about student athlete that I didn't even think of that. Like that is such a good
Yeah,
point, but I didn't even think about that. The scheduling, the flying, the awake. I didn't even. It was not even something that
right,
crossed my mind. And now thinking about it, I'm like, oh
right,
man.
and that's for those top sports, right? I mean,
Right.
for those sports that there is kind of that, right, there is a clearly defined professional level,
Yeah.
right? So um, a sport like a sport like uh, you know volleyball, right? Your option at the next level typically, my guess would be, and there may be some professional leagues out there I'm not aware of, but like Olympics, that's kind of what I think of. If you want to transition to that, try to play for your country. And yes, like a lot of those folks are going to have a career after they're done playing volleyball in college. But for these folks trying to go be somebody, go be an athlete at the next level, um, and you can argue, yeah, they have help, or yeah, they have easy classes or majors or
Yeah,
whatever, but
but
like not all of them do. Not all of them
not
do.
all of them do. Who was that one athlete? Oh, I can't even remember. But he had like an engineering degree or something. I remember he was like a big deal. I can't even think of it now. It was like somebody who went pro, and they were saying that he had like got
Hey, did you know Ryan
a
Fitzpatrick
not
went to
easy degree
Harvard?
because
That's one thing. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was a long-time NFL quarterback, and they every single game. Yeah, actually, the only Harvard player in the NFL. And they always talked about it. It was just
all
it was
right,
always
what he
kind of
studied
funny.
at Harvard.
I don't know what he studied at Harvard. I
I'm gonna look it up.
look that up because I actually don't. They would always talk about it. They mentioned it every single game that he played in. But now I'm curious if he had some like.
What's his name again?
So it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. Um,
That's funny. I just remember that one guy. I don't even know his name, but I just remember the interview because he was like, "My mom told me this might not work out. You got to get like a good
yeah.
degree." Like
Well, I
his
guess I
mom
mean,
had told him, so he
I,
was like, "All right,
yeah, Josh Jobs has like an aeronautical engineering degree.
yeah,
He can do space math, which is like a whole different level of thing. I don't.
ooh, economics at Harvard.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
fancy, fancy."
Oh yeah, a little different from your communications degree at the University of Alabama.
Look, and if anybody from Alabama is offended by that, we don't care.
No, it's like the
It's
joke.
just the truth.
Every college athlete does communications. Like that's like you always see communicating. Like oh there's another one. Yeah, there's another one. But yeah, all this to say, Florida State's going to leave the ACC. They're
Yeah.
going somewhere else. This breakup's going to happen, and they're gonna go try to find see if the grass is greener on the other side, which it probably will be because they will be a hot commodity. Somebody's gonna want to bring them on board. Um, I'm sure the SEC will probably have first rights at grabbing them just because of where they're located, and obviously it would make sense. Again, talking about travel, it would make sense, but um, yeah, I saw this break and was just like uh, a bit shocked. I mean, it's just a bit
No,
shocked
when
it's
you told me
happening.
about it, when you messaged me, or
Yeah.
when I called you, and I was like, "Hey," and you were like, "Yeah," I just started googling while I
Mm-hmm.
was on the phone, with Taylor, and I was like, "This is wild," especially before the holidays. That was like one of my first thoughts. I was like, "There are some attorneys who are pissed right now about their Christmas being
Mm-hmm.
interrupted." Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it
Mer-
happens.
mer-
This is
mer-
what, and what I keep saying, I'm not a litigator and I don't practice. That's why, y'all.
oh man, yeah,
That's why.
yeah, yeah. Because
never got into it
otherwise,
for
you
a minute.
couldn't be here on a Friday night hanging out and talking about
I
sports.
know.
You'd have to be,
So,
doing a job or
doing a job.
doing a
Researching
job.
a brief for a
Yeah.
complaint of pleading. I don't know.
No,
Okay.
thank you. No,
Your
thank you.
trivia is very easy tonight.
Oh, well, at least there is trivia this
I look.
episode.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me for last
I'm
time.
not.
I had a
I'm
blip.
not.
I had a
I'm
blip.
not. I'm not. I'm not. All right. All right. I think
Your
I'm.
trivia is so easy tonight. Okay.
See.
It is. No, no,
Okay.
no.
No. No.
No.
Confidence. Confidence.
Fully believe in you.
Confidence is key. Confidence is key.
Confidence is key.
Okay.
Okay. This person has some ties to both Florida and Maryland. Maryland. Okay.
Okay.
They have played at the college level. I won't say which sport because I feel like that gives it away too easily. At Florida State University.
Mm-hmm.
And they have gone on to play professionally in the same sport.
Okay.
With several different teams.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And if I'm not mistaken, the last team that they played for was right here in Maryland for the Baltimore Ravens.
Wait, shit. Did he play for the Ravens? So I have someone in mind, but I
Yeah,
don't.
that's what about I hear. I hear it.
I don't remember him being on the Ravens though. That's like one of those. What's that? One of those like weird, obscure. Like,
I hope I didn't read it
dude,
wrong.
That dude played for them.
No, I'm right. Yeah, for a year. Yeah.
One of those 1-year deals.
It's one of those 1-year deals.
Also, you're not going to tell me what sport, but he played for the Baltimore Ravens, so
I know.
so thanks. I mean,
that wasn't real. Okay, I guess it gives it away a little bit, and the reason why I didn't say which sport for Florida is because he did play multiple professional sports.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's Dion then.
It's Deion Sanders.
That's right. That is okay. That's okay. Because now I honestly, I do not. Hold on. I don't remember. That's like one of those. There are those like really weird. I like going through them. Like I'll go through like slide things of like, do you remember this player played for this team? And I'm like, No, I absolutely don't remember that. So he was there.
So, in 2004, Sanders announced his
Oh,
intention to come out of retirement after being convinced by his friend Joe Zorovic, Baltimore Ravens quarterback Corey Fuller, and linebacker Ray Lewis to
yeah.
play, and he signed a 1-year deal with the Ravens to be a nickelback. He chose to
Okay.
wear the number 37, which matched his age at the time, to preemptively let people know that he was well aware of his relative senior status as an NFL player. So,
Yeah. Now you got Tom Brady playing when he's like
oh
45
God,
or
please don't
whatever.
even get me
Give
started on him.
much.
Also, it's you, sir. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do in football, sir. I don't care if you never fumble, but you fumbled Giselle Bundchen. And you know what? that
Dude, I don't know, man. Tom seems to be doing pretty okay. He's just chilling. He
he ain't doing
seems.
okay in his personal life. Because how you fumbled Giselle Bundchen?
I thought he was like, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. Just it happens. I
You
don't know.
know?
I don't know.
Because like I just don't wait. Yeah. Because they wait a minute. Because now I'm like they did finally. Yeah, the divorce was
Oh
finalized
yeah,
last
yeah.
year.
They're done.
Okay,
Oh
I
yeah,
had to
no, no,
double
no.
check.
Oh no,
I
no,
was
no. They're
thinking
done,
because
done.
I was like, maybe it didn't, but
No, no.
um,
I don't know, man.
people.
That man, retired, had the prospect of, apparently spending a lot of time with her, and then literally went back to the NFL. So something must have been going on before then, because I'm like, bruh.
I want to say
Also,
things.
shouldn't have come back. Shouldn't have come
I
back.
wanted to
Should have
say a
just.
snarky joke, but I'm gonna leave it because I always promise I don't get heavily political on this podcast, so I'm not gonna say
Oh, aren't you
anything
sweet?
about
Well, hey,
it.
I do want to share though a fun fact about Dion, because you said he played multiple
Yes,
sports.
I love Deion
So
Sanders.
so I did not realize this. So he when he was playing for the Reds, obviously typically a baseball uniform, right, has short sleeves, about here. Well, he wanted to cut his sleeves, so he cut his sleeves kind of here ish, right? And Major League Baseball was like, hey, like you can't do that because the team has to have a uniform look. So the Reds changed their uniforms
Just for him?
to like because all the players were like, no, like we'll cut our sleeves off, like no way, like we love this. So they changed their uniform to, so it's why they went to a basically a vest jersey, and they would wear a shirt underneath of it.
That's cool. I
So I was
like
like,
that.
damn, that's pretty tight. That's pretty
That's
tight.
pretty
That's pretty cool.
cool.
That's pretty
He
cool.
seems like a really cool dude, so
He does, and I want the best for him and Colorado. I hope he continues to have success. A lot of
yes.
people kind of shit on his year, but it's like, hey man, they won one game last year and 4 games this year. I'd say that's a pretty vast improvement. And,
I'm gonna say that's amazing.
they'll
So
they'll only get better. But
exactly.
but yeah, no, I this and I do. I hate that we do talk a lot about things that aren't over yet and it's ongoing. But that's kind of the sports world. There's just always something going
Yeah.
on, and there's
Well,
always
you know
different
what?
things.
We'll have an exciting criminal case, another criminal case coming up
Yes,
soon because we were supposed to record that today. We won't say what it
yes,
is, but just a little teaser. We were supposed to record that today, and then Taylor was like, "Nah, this thing just happened. We got to talk about it." So we will, have an interesting
yeah.
criminal case come up. I will give like a little teaser in that I am a stand-up comedian also, and one of my favorite stand-up jokes that I've seen a very famous comedian make actually references this case. And
Also,
I
I
introduced Taylor to that joke, and
and
he
apparently I'm
laughed
in the
so
minority on
hard.
that. I'm in the minority on that because I mentioned it to two different people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know that skit. Yeah, I know that bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Okay." I apparently I was left in the
Yeah,
dark on that one, but
but the
but yeah,
case itself is not funny, so do want to be clear
no,
about
no,
that.
no,
It's,
no,
it's
no.
a
We're
very sad.
no, and I think I just this did want to do a sad episode for
I will
Christmas.
say
So
the joke mocks the assailant. That's what makes it funny. Is it's mocking the hell out of the person, the villain.
yeah,
in the story, it's not mocking
so go
a
yeah.
victim, but there is a victim,
Yeah, go do your
and it
googling
is
and
sad.
go
So
see go try to sleuth y'all. Try to
yeah,
figure
you
out who
know
it
what?
is.
If you could guess what sports related criminal case we're referencing that there is a very famous stand up bit about, drop it
I
in the comments
will
and we can see if you're right.
I will give you personally 1,000 points if you can guess it
That
right.
is a whole thousand Taylor points. That
I
is
will give a
quite an
thousand Taylor
accomplishment.
points. yeah. They can be redeemed for various uh, uh, items. Pierogies is one of them, which is I mean huge. I think honestly in this day and time. So
All right. Well, there you go. What incentives?
I know the people yeah,
All right,
chomping
everybody.
at the bit. Yeah, yeah. Go follow me, the Bespoke Tailor. I'm now on TikTok because we were trying to go live the other day and it's the whole thing. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I do have that recording, so I do have a. We'll have to do it behind the scenes one of these days. But yeah,
And
go follow
TikTok
me.
records it too.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah.
The Bespoke Tailor, Booker Squared, on all the platforms. For her, you'll be watching this on YouTube, Spotify, listen to an Apple podcast, wherever. But we hope you enjoyed it. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas, wonderful holidays, whatever it is you're doing with whatever friends and family. We hope it's absolutely wonderful.
Yes, and we will see you next time.